Hi, this is Linda Vitti from Linda Vitti's Life Coaching and Counseling, and I want to talk to you today about isolation. Now, when we're dealing with trauma and we're talking about isolation is a very dangerous thing to the trauma victim. Isolation will bring on depression, will help bring on depression, I should say. It will keep us in our own head and in our own thoughts. It will keep us disconnected and feeling alone or abandoned. It will not allow us to bounce our thoughts and ideas off anyone else. So we're only looking through our own filter. And these things can be very dangerous for our thinking and for our mental well-being. So isolation is your enemy. Now, there is one exception I will say, and that's when you're taking what I call a rest day. That's when you're unplugging from social media, you're unplugging from work, you're unplugging from people who need you and depend on you. You're unplugging for maybe a day, maybe a few hours, and you're just taking time for yourself. That's different. That's not considered isolation. That's considered self-care. So when we talk about isolation, we're talking about purposely isolating yourself from other people and other things that bring you different ideas, different interactions, and different ways of thinking. So the first thing you've got to know when you're isolating is you're trying to keep yourself safe. You're trying to keep yourself safe from triggers. You're trying to keep yourself safe from hypervigilance. You're trying to keep yourself safe from saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. You're trying to keep yourself safe from other people's perceptions of you and what other people think of you. So isolation can be a way of trying to keep yourself safe, but it's a dysfunctional way to keep yourself safe. Okay? It's a false sense of safety. Because yes, those things may not happen when you isolate, but you also can't get anything good. When you eliminate the bad, you also eliminate the good. And that is the problem with this. You can't just wall yourself off from everything that may impact you without walling yourself off from the good things that can impact you. So it's a catch-22. But there are ways to self-protect without isolating. There are healthy ways to self-protect. And I'm going to do another video on self-protection and healthy ways to self-protect versus unhealthy ways to self-protect. So, when you're isolating, you're going to have to fight your way out of it. If you have started isolating and you're trying to figure out how to get out of it, I'm going to give you a few ways to try and pull yourself out of it, because you do have to, kicking and screaming and clawing and fighting yourself tooth and nail, you are going to have to fight your way out of isolation. The first thing you can do is pick up the phone and call someone you trust. Call someone that you can confide in, someone who knows you, and say, look, I just want to make myself accountable. I've been isolating and I know it's not healthy for me, and so I'm calling you to talk, to pray, to make myself accountable, whatever. But that can be a first step right there. Another thing you can do, get outside of your house or your apartment. Go for a walk. Go for a bike ride. Go to the gym. Go to the beach. Get out where there are other people and just start doing something. Doesn't have to be anything planned. Doesn't have to be where there are definitely people, but where you could run into somebody, where you might see somebody. A walk, the beach, walking around, a shopping mall, walking around, somewhere where there might be people. Just getting out and doing something active. being active, getting your brain with endorphins, getting those chemicals changing in your brain by moving is very, very important to isolation. So do something physical, do something active, do something where there might be people. Another thing you can do is start journaling. Why are you isolating? Try and figure out what has caused you to start isolating. Did an event happen that you have not processed? Did a bad situation happen that you have not really fully acknowledged yet? Did something start the ball rolling with wanting you to isolate? Did somebody cross your boundaries? Did somebody make you feel unsafe? Journaling can help you figure out what these things may be. And so try journaling, try getting that stuff out on paper and see what comes out. That's another step to isolating. Another thing you can do is volunteer somewhere. Just make yourself needed. Sometimes we isolate because we don't feel like anybody needs us. We don't feel like anybody wants us. We don't feel like we have any purpose anymore. And sometimes just volunteering or offering your services at a food bank or at a call line. Maybe you don't want to go out because of COVID things. So you offer to talk to people on a call line. You call a call line. You call a crisis hotline. Whatever it is, the point is you are making yourself useful in some way. Okay? Yes, crisis lines are there so people that are isolating or depressed or suicidal can call in. And if you're isolating, you qualify. If you're not ready to volunteer and make yourself needed, you can still use that because they need you to call in to stay open, to stay valid, to stay relevant. So don't feel like, okay, I'm just going to be No, that is another trick that we use in our thinking, that if I reach out to a friend, I'm going to be a burden. If I bother them with this, I'm going to be a burden. Well, guess what? You know what? When someone calls you and says, you know what, I'm really hurting, can you help? That makes you feel like $1,000,000. So know that if you're calling someone else, you're making them feel like $1,000,000. You're not burdening them. Another thing to change in your thinking is just reaching out and texting a friend maybe you haven't talked to in a while and say, how are you doing? It doesn't have to be anything about you and your isolation. It can just be, how are you doing? I was thinking about you today and I thought I'd see how you are. You never know. That person may write you back and say, I can't believe you texted me today. I was having such a bad day and your text really lifted me up. Like, you just don't know how someone else may be hurting, isolating, struggling. We don't know what other people are struggling with because we're so self-involved in our own isolation that we haven't even reached out to anybody else. So we don't know who's struggling and who's hurting. So these are all things you can do to get out of your isolation. But here is the main thing you want to know. You have to fight this. You have to get out of this. You have to do some of these things and fight it. If you don't, it will lead to depression. It will lead to chemical changes in your brain. It will lead to bad thinking. It will lead to suicidal thoughts. So isolation is a dangerous place for a trauma survivor to be. So if you're having trouble with this or anything else, I want you to reach out to me, Linda Vitti at Linda Vitti's Life Coaching and Counseling. Find me on Facebook, Instagram, message me on Messenger, find me on TikTok. Just reach out. I will get back to you. Make that be the first step in you not isolating anymore, okay? All right, we'll see you next time. God bless.